Chapter 3 The Star Palace. A water rat scuttled away as the children felt their way along the narrow passage. It led to a canal, like so many of Venice's alleys and passages. Hornet, Prosper, and Beau, however, only followed it as far as a metal door, set in the windowless wall to their right. Someone had painted Vietato Ingresso in clumsy letters on it. No entry. The door had once been one of the movie theater's emergency exits. Now it was the entrance to a hiding place that only 6 children knew anything about. Next to the door was a cord, and Prosper gave it 2 strong tugs. He waited for a moment and then pulled it once more. This was their sign, but it still took quite a while before something happened. Beau hopped impatiently from one foot to the other. Finally, the door opened just a crack and a suspicious voice asked, "Password?" "Come on, Riccio, you know we never remember the stupid password," Prosper mumbled angrily. Hornet stepped up to the door and hissed, "Do you see these bags in my hands, Hedgehog? I just dragged them all the way from the Rialto market. My arms are as long as a monkey's, so open the door." Riccio opened the door, looking very worried. Okay, but only if Prosper doesn't tell Scipio again, like last time. Riccio was a scrawny boy, and at least a head shorter than Prosper, although he wasn't much younger than him. At least that's what he claimed. His brown hair always stuck out from his head in every direction, earning him the name Riccio, the Hedgehog. "No one can remember Scipio's passwords," Hornet muttered as she pushed past him. "And anyway, the special ring is enough." "Scipio doesn't think so." Riccio carefully pushed the bolt across the door. "Well, then he should make up passwords we can remember. Can you remember the last one?" Riccio scratched his spiky head. "Hold on. Catago, diddle-do, east, or something like that." Hornet rolled her eyes. Beau giggled. Riccio walked ahead, shining the way with his flashlight. "We've already started cleaning it up," he said, "but we haven't got far. Mosca just wants to fiddle with his radio all the time. And until an hour ago, we were standing in front of the Palazzo Pisani. I really don't know why Scipio had to pick such a place, of all places, for his next raid. There's something going on in there nearly every night. Parties, receptions, dinners. All the wealthy families of Venice seem to be in and out all the time. Beats me how Scipio thinks he can get in there." Prosper shrugged. So far, the thief lord hadn't asked him and Beau to stake out one of his targets, although Beau kept begging him to do that. It was usually Riccio and Mosca who were sent to check out the houses Scipio planned to visit at night. Scipio had a name for the 2 of them. He called them his eyes. Hornet's task was to make sure that the money from his raids was not spent too quickly. Prosper and Beau, as the thief lord's most recent charges, had so far only been allowed to tag along when the loot was sold, or, like today, to do some shopping. Prosper didn't mind at all. Beau, however, would have loved to sneak with Scipio into the city's most elegant houses to steal all the amazing things the thief lord always brought back from his raids. "Scipio can get into any house," Beau said, skipping along next to Riccio. 2 hops on his right leg, 2 on the left. Beau never just walked. He ran or he bounced. He raided the Doge's palace and wasn't caught. He is the thief lord. "Oh, yes, the raid at Doge's palace. How can we ever forget?" Hornet grinned at Prosper. "Even you must have heard that story 100 times by now." Prosper had to smile back. "Well, I could hear it 1,000 times, Riccio said, pushing aside a dark and musty curtain. Ahead of them lay the movie theater's auditorium. It hadn't been open to the public for some time. It was not very cold, but it was in a much worse condition than some of the city's houses that had stood for hundreds of years. Dusty wire cables stuck out from the ceiling where there had once been large chandeliers. The children had strung a few naked light bulbs running on batteries throughout the large room, and even in their dim light you could see the plaster coming off the ceiling. Only the front 3 rows of seats remained, and each of those was missing a few chairs. Mice had built their nests in the soft red upholstery. The movie theater's screen was hidden behind a thick curtain embroidered with golden stars. The curtain was moth-eaten, but it had kept its old splendor. The gold thread on the pale blue fabric still shimmered, full of promise, and Beau had to touch the golden stars at least once every day. Sitting on the bare floor in front of the curtain was a boy. He was fiddling with an old radio and was so engrossed in his work that he didn't notice Beau creeping up on him. Beau jumped onto his back and the boy spun around. "Darn it, Beau," he shouted. "I nearly stabbed myself with the screwdriver." But Bo skipped away. Laughing, he climbed like a squirrel over the folding seats. Just you wait, you little water rat, Mosca roared, trying to catch Bo. This time I'm going to tickle you until you burst. Bo screamed, Prop, help me! But Prosper just stood there grinning. He didn't lift a finger, not even when Mosca tucked his little brother under his arm like a parcel. Mosca was the biggest and strongest of them all, and however much Bo kicked and struggled, Mosca wouldn't let go. Unimpressed by his wriggling, Mosca carried his prisoner over to the others. What do you think? Should I tickle him, or should I keep him prisoner here forever under my arm? Bo screamed, Let me go, Mosca! Mosca's skin was beautifully black. Riccio always claimed he could hide like a shadow in the dark alleyways of the city. All right, I will pardon you this time, dwarf, Mosca said grandly, while Bo tried more and more desperately to free himself. Then he asked, So, did you bring the paint for my boat? No, it's too expensive. We'll buy it when Scipio brings us the new loot, Hornet answered. She dumped the bags on a chair. We can't afford it at the moment. But we've got enough emergency cash. Mosca put Bo back on his feet and crossed his arms angrily. What are you going to do with all that money? How often do I have to tell you? The money is for bad times. Hornet pulled Bo to her side. Do you think you can manage to put the things in the fridge? Bo nodded and dashed off, nearly falling flat on his face. He dragged the bags, one by one, to the double doors that used to open to let in the audience. Beyond the doors, in the entrance hall, was a large display cabinet that had once held drinks and ice cream. Although it didn't work anymore, it was still useful for storing supplies. While Bo carried away the heavy bags, Mosca kneeled down in front of his radio again. Too expensive, he grumbled. My boat will rot away soon if I don't paint it, but you guys don't care, because you're just a bunch of landlubbers. There's always enough money for Hornet's books. Hornet didn't answer that. Silently, she began to collect paper and other trash from the floor while Prosper swept up the mouse droppings. Hornet really did have a lot of books. She had even bought some of them, but mostly they were cheap paperbacks that had been thrown away by tourists. Hornet fished them out of trash cans and waste paper baskets, or she found them under the seats of vaporetto boats or at the train station. You could hardly see her mattress behind the stacks of books. They all had their beds close together at the back of the movie theater. At night, after they had switched off the lights and blown out the last candle, the large windowless auditorium would be flooded with such complete darkness that it made them feel tiny as ants and very lost. But the sounds of one another's breathing made them feel all a little safer. Riccio's mattress was covered with old comic books, and his sleeping bag was stuffed with so many stuffed animals that there was hardly any space left for him. Mosca's bed could easily be spotted by his toolbox and fishing rods, which he liked to sleep next to. Tucked under the pillow was Mosca's greatest treasure, his lucky charm. This was a brass seahorse, exactly like the ones that adorned most gondolas in the city. Mosca swore that he hadn't stolen it from a gondola, but had instead fished it from the canal behind the movie theater. A stolen lucky charm, he always claimed, brings only bad luck. Everybody knows that. Bo and Prosper huddled together every night on a single mattress. Bo's collection of plastic fans was lined up neatly at the top end. There were 6 of them, all in pretty good shape, but Bo's favorite was still the one Prosper had found at the station on the day they arrived. The Thief Lord never slept with his followers in the Star Palace. No one knew where Scipio spent the nights, and he never spoke about it, although every now and then he would drop a mysterious hint about an abandoned church. Riccio had tried to follow him once, but he had been spotted immediately by Scipio, who had gotten so angry that afterward none of them even dared to watch him when he left. Their leader came and went as he pleased, and they had gotten used to it. He sometimes turned up 3 days in a row, and then they wouldn't see him again for nearly a week. But he did want to come that day, and when the Thief Lord announced a visit, he always came. But you could never be sure exactly when Scipio would appear. As Riccio's clock showed almost 11 and Bo was nearly asleep on Prosper's lap, they crept under their blankets and Hornet began to read to them. She usually read to make them sleepy, to drive away their fear of the dreams that were waiting for them in the dark. That night, however, Hornet read to them to keep them awake until Scipio's arrival. She selected the most thrilling story from her pile of books, while the others lit the candles that stood in empty bottles and jars among the mattresses. Riccio placed 5 brand new candles in their only real candlestick. They were long and slender and made from pale wax. Riccio, Hornet asked when they were all lying around her, waiting for their story. Where did you get the candles? Riccio self-consciously hid his face between his soft toys. From the Salute Church, he mumbled. There are hundreds, probably thousands lying around there, so it doesn't really matter if I take a few every now and then. Why should we spend our precious money on candles? I swear, he grinned at Hornet, I always blow the Virgin Mary a kiss for each one. Hornet buried her face in her hands and sighed. Oh, go on, start reading, Mosca said impatiently. No carabiniere will ever arrest Riccio for stealing a few candles, would he? They could, mumbled Bo. He yawned and curled up next to Prosper, who was struggling with the needle and thread over the holes in his brother's pants. Because Riccio's guardian angel won't look after him if he steals things from a church, he's not allowed to. Pah, trash, guardian angel. Riccio made a contemptuous face, although he did sound a little worried. Hornet read for nearly an hour, while the night outside grew darker, and all those who had filled the city with noise during the day were long in their beds. Finally, the book slipped from her fingers and her eyelids drooped. When Scipio finally arrived, they were all fast asleep.